Hello, and thank you for sitting down with me today as I talk through a recent color analysis I got done and how it's going to impact the colors I choose to knit with going forward. Hi everyone, I hope that you are having a great week, a great day. It's super windy where I am, so I'm really excited to be sitting down inside in the safety and just talking for a little while. So before we get into it, I wanted to quickly talk about the sweater I'm wearing. This is a handmade sweater, so it is the Oakley sweater pattern by Stitching Simply, Rachel. I test knit it a few months ago and I knit it out of the Purl Soho good wool. I will have that information in the description, but always just want to point out when I am wearing something handmade. So today I'm sitting down to talk about a color analysis or a seasonal color analysis I recently got done and why I did it and how it's now going to impact the yarn I purchase going forward. So I'm really excited about this. I've been wanting to do a color analysis for a while. I just think that they are really helpful for kind of narrowing down your color palette, and it's kind of part of a broader effort that I've been working on for myself to narrow down, or I guess identify pieces that I can knit, both yarn-wise and patterns-wise, that are going to get me closer to my dream handmade wardrobe that I can reliably wear for decades to come. I've spent a lot of time in the past knitting things that I end up not loving, either because of the color choice or the yarn choice or sizing issues, or the pattern just isn't really what I want. And so I'm really trying to get a few steps ahead of that by considering now what colors I really love and making my ideal palette for myself to make it easier to make color choices. And then, in the future, I'll probably also talk about silhouettes of pieces that I want to knit or other styles, balancing the process of knitting and getting enjoyment out of the hobby itself versus the finished object and fitting a finished object into my wardrobe. So more exciting things to come, but today we're sitting down to talk about the color analysis and identifying kind of my knit wardrobe color palette. So I'm really excited. This was a really interesting process, but before we get into describing the results of the color analysis, I do want to talk about seasonal color analyses. I think that there is some discourse around, are they a good thing? Are they limiting? Are they perpetuating certain power imbalances? Things like that. So quickly wanted to give some insight into why I chose to do this and how I plan to use my color analysis without then limiting myself or buying into these kind of beauty standard beliefs that these seasonal color analyses can enforce. So to start off, I did this not because I want to know what colors I look prettiest in or what is most flattering for me, because flattering can be kind of a difficult term to unpack. Often when we say flattering, we mean slimming, or we mean making you look whiter or enhancing larger eyes or something that just, it often means trying to make you look more like a beauty standard that is fat phobic or racist or has kind of these implications. And so it's worth thinking into, what does flattering mean to you? And do you actually want to look the beauty standard that you have been fed, or are you just kind of buying into it because that is the norm? And so when I decided to get my color analysis, I was very thoughtful about it because I have heard a lot of people talk about, flattering colors don't mean anything, and they're perpetuating these kind of beauty standards that are making all of us feel worse about ourselves, essentially, especially if you don't fit into it, if you are not quite. So I was very intentional about deciding to do this, and I really decided to do it not because I want to know what I look best in, but I find that I am actually more creative when I have limits. Instead of having to choose from everything, if I don't have some sort of color palette or color guide, I end up kind of having decision paralysis around what color I want to knit with or just what I want to choose. If there's too many choices, I shut down and I end up going with either something that I'm going to end up really hating because it felt different and it felt unique and it felt cool, but actually it just means like, oh, it feels different because I don't want it. Or I end up going with what seems like the safest choice and knitting another beige sweater or another pink sweater because that is one of my neutral colors almost. So I thought that having kind of this box to play within of like, here are some colors that do kind of complement my skin tone and aren't going to make me look naked because I have knit things that I end up looking naked in because they're the exact same color as my skin tone. So for me, the value was in knowing what my undertone was, to know, what kind of colors to avoid, to not look super washed out or look nude. And then also to establish a box for myself of knowing like, okay, I have this kind of pinky undertone and I love this pink color that they've recommended. And all of the colors in this palette go with that pink color because it's all part of kind of this cohesive color palette. So that's why I chose to do it. But I fully recognize that they are not perfect for every person. And at the end of the day, whatever colors make you feel your best should be the colors you wear. 90% of looking amazing is just feeling amazing. So if you love hot pink, and someone on the internet, color analysis, tells me, that it doesn't suit you, if you feel good in it, it's gonna suit you because that's like a fake thing. So while it's a helpful guide and it's a helpful kind of place to start, it's definitely not an end all. But for me, I love a box. I love some parameters to play within. So I've made my little sandbox through this color analysis and I'm really excited about it. So I ended up, you can definitely not buy a color analysis, but I ended up purchasing an online color analysis through Curate My Style. They're a UK-based brand and they were really great. It was £33, or that's about $40 US. And within 72 hours, I'd sent them a few pictures of myself in natural lighting with minimal makeup. And within 72 hours, they sent me back a report about my color analysis and some color palettes that I can draw from. And so the point of color analysis is to kind of, you get a season assigned to you, and then you might get a true of that season, a soft, or I think there's also a bold option. But so essentially there's 4 seasons, winter, spring, summer, autumn. And then within that, there's a soft autumn, a true autumn, I think a bold autumn. I'm not totally sure about the last one, but there ends up being between like 8 and 12 seasons or sub-seasons that you can be. And it kind of shows you how to dress or what colors to choose when you are shopping. The point is, what colors should you wear in your clothing? And of course, now I'm applying this to my knitwear with what yarn should I buy to make garments. So I ended up getting a soft autumn on mine, which makes sense. I actually in the past have kind of tried to do my own research on the seasonal color analysis and not purchase one. But I decided to purchase one for this because I knew I wanted to talk about it in a video, and I would have rather just known kind of what I was talking about and had someone else who is a professional in this do it for me just to kind of talk it through. But I think that if you don't want to purchase a seasonal color analysis, looking up on Google or Pinterest like seasonal color palettes and kind of identifying which one you identify with most or which one you think looks the best with you, you can kind of go on that on its own, and that's a great guide for itself, but I chose to do it through someone, and I did get the Soft Autumn color palette, which makes a lot of sense. In the past, when I've looked for myself and just browsed through the different color palettes of the seasons, the Soft Autumn was definitely the one I felt the most pulled to. So I'm glad that that checks out. And so, yeah, I am a Soft Autumn, which is kind of a neutral, warm palette with a lot of faded colors in it. Some of the description of the palette includes soft autumn reflects the first breath of autumn right after a summer of long periods of sun exposure where the sun has faded the color out of the plants and grass. With this in mind, think of your palette as very understated. Think of these colors as being powdery or muted, and that is the most important part of your colors, hence the name Soft Autumn. Soft autumn colors have a washed or worn in or vintage look to them rather than a striking, clear, or bright quality. And then another way to think of these colors is cloudy or chalk-like. This will help you spot colors that are very soft in their quality. So I'll have some of the palettes shared with me on screen, but I got 80 different colors in my mix, and these resources are available online. You pay for color analysis, but I've seen many, many screenshots online of these different color palettes, so I'm not sharing anything I shouldn't be. But you can see there's lots and lots of different colors in this palette. They're all pretty muted and split up into kind of warm tones, those kind of contrasty colors with some greens, not too many greens, a lot of grays, which I'm happy about because I love a grayish beige. Clearly, I'm wearing this. Love blues, so I've got some blue options. And then some more pinks. So the palette is definitely dominated by some muted pinks, which is very validating. If you've seen any of my past podcasts, I love a muted pink. I need to stop knitting with pink this year. I've knit so many things with it. But I love it. And lots of kind of terracotta colors and some off blues, or like I really love these off blues, the grays. I love the greens in this palette too. They're very muted. I love the tea green though. It's kind of like a little pop of mint or like a lime sherbet. But then the rest of them are a very understated green. One thing I was surprised about in this palette is that there isn't an army green. I've always thought that I liked army green that I looked good in army green, and I will continue to wear it because I don't need to listen to these 4 screenshots of colors. The 4 screenshots of colors will not define my life, but they do really help me to kind of get a starting place. So it's an interesting palette. It's not any bold colors really, and it's all kind of warm undertone colors. There's no straight grays, and while there are blues and greens, they're kind of on the warmer side of a blue or a green. Like you can kind of tell that maybe they have some like purpley undertones rather than just a straight blue, or they're just more muted, as the description says, and more on the warm side. But they're not like the warmest colors I've ever seen. You know, it's not like a super red or a super strong orange or a yellow. It's more of it's a lot of complex colors that have a lot of different components, and it's not bold in any way, which I like because that's already how I've kind of dressed and how I've kind of chosen my yarn choices in the past, which is great. And I think that this palette is really going to help me eliminate those last few purchases or last few like considered purchases of yarn that would at the end of the day be maybe too overpowering for me, or would just maybe not make me feel like my best self, because I definitely do feel my most confident in this kind of color palette. So, you know, I still might one day knit a hot pink tank top because I just think that that would be cool. I love hot pink, and even if hot pink doesn't love me, I'm gonna wear it. So maybe one day you'll see like a neon pink something from me, but mostly I do feel very comfortable within the confines of kind of this palette. I think that I went through my yarn stash earlier to kind of see like, okay, is there anything that is really offensively outside of these kind of 80 colors? And I already pretty much buy within this color palette. So that's really validating for me to, I do know my own undertones, even if I didn't know how to verbalize it before. I did kind of know, this is what I feel the most confident in, what I think I look the best in, and it's nice to have that validated. But of course, if it wasn't validated and they'd said like, oh, I'm a winter and you look best in all these like very cold colors, I still wouldn't have gotten rid of anything, and would still have worn my terracotta sweaters and things like that. But it is validating. It's nice to know like, okay, this is a nice sandbox to play in, and I'm really excited to bring it forward to yarn purchases I'm considering. So now, with kind of this palette in mind, I now have been looking through my stash, and as I said, it's pretty in line with what the color palette dictates, which is great. And I've been looking as well at future yarn purchases to really decide which yarn I should prioritize knitting up if I already own it, because it is going to be kind of the most within my palette and make me feel the most confident. So considering now, like, okay, maybe I identified this sweater's quantity for a pullover that's going to come very far up my neck and be next to my face, and maybe if it's not within this palette, maybe I should consider like a V-neck or something that just like I still will wear it, but if I make it into a V-neck or a cardigan and I can layer it with other pieces that are more appealing or bring out my undertone more, maybe I can do that, and kind of considering my plans like that, or changing some of my plans for my more flattering looking yarn or not. I don't want to say flattering after I talk about that, but I think a better word is like, brings out my undertone more. Those yarns, maybe I do want something that's higher neck. So really considering like, how do I want to use the yarn I own? I'm not going to get rid of anything because of these results, but just I also would have very little to get rid of. I already bought in this palette a lot, but I have been considering like, do I need to change any plans based off of how the color is going to look close to my face and close to, my skin? Do I want more skin showing? Do I want to be able to layer with this, or is it going to look really good just on its own with my skin? So lots of things to consider. And so I wanted to pull some yarn out of my stash that both is really in line with my color palette, and then some that is really not in line with my color palette, and kind of talk about what I'm planning on doing with that with these results in mind. So I have three yarns that are in my color, or four that are in my color palette that are also, you all, if you watch regularly, have seen these yarns so many times by now, because I've talked about them in my podcast. I've talked about them in my winter or my spring knitting plans. I'm very excited about these yarns. And they all fit really nicely in the color palette. So first, let's talk about this yarn, which I'm planning on making a cardigan with, and it's actually pretty similar. It's a little bit warmer, but kind of similar to this yarn as well, that I'm wearing. But so this is a color called Dust Bunny. It's from Apothecary Fiber Co., who actually just closed down. But it is a beautiful color. It's kind of a grayish beige. And so I am really happy with this yarn, that it features well in the color palette. I thought that especially the colors White Coffee and Silver Pink from my color palette really kind of are this color, or definitely are very close to it. Here, I'll try to get close. So I'm really excited to knit this up with a little bit more confidence, knowing that it is going to look nice with my skin, which looking next to my face, I was like, oh, this looks lovely. But, I think I've been cheated or fooled one too many times by a yarn that I thought looked lovely when I held it up, and then within the knitting process realized I really don't like the way this looks against my own skin. So with that extra validation, I'm really excited to knit this up. I did consider changing to maybe making a pullover with this to have it be a little bit higher neck, given that I think it does look really great, and this kind of palette validates that it would look really great with my skin. But I think that I am going to stick with the cardigan plan for this, because I often wear cardigans as shirts. I just button them up and wear it as a sweater on its own. And the added versatility of a cardigan will honestly make it more wearable. So even though, it's not going to be covering as much as of my skin and not as close to my face, I think that the fact that I will wear it more as a cardigan means that, it is a good use of this nicely colored yarn. So that's the first one that I'm really excited to knit up, and I think fits really well into my color palette. This is another yarn that I've shown very frequently. I should mention all three of these were sample knit compensation yarns, so that's why I have a lot of nicer yarn is from sample knitting. So if you are ever wondering how I afford all this, I do labor in return for a lot of it. So pro tip, if you are interested in building your own stash, maybe see if you can get into sample knitting for yarn dyers. But yes, I just want to clarify that quickly. But this is another colorway that I think comes up a lot in my palette. It's the color Docile by Explorer Knits and Fibers. This is on their Earthy Sock base, which is non-superwash, and so it's not quite as tonal as some of the other Explorer Knits tonal colorways, just due to the fact that it's on a different base. So I don't know if you can really tell online. I've tried to show this a few times, but it isn't totally a tonal. But I'm very excited to work with this, and it fits into my color palette quite well. So this one matches the shades or hues. I still could get better at knowing my color language, but matches the colors Morning Blue, Wintergreen Dream, and Artichoke quite well. So I'm really excited to work it up. I'm also planning a cardigan with this, a V-neck cardigan, so it's also not going to be like right next to my face, but for the same reasons as this yarn, I think that that's okay. I think that cardigans are a really versatile piece for me, and it's still going to be by my face. It's still going to be, on my body and complementing my skin. And yeah, I've noticed my eyes change colors. They're kind of a bluish green, but they kind of match whatever tone I'm wearing. So I feel like they look a little bit bluer when I'm just wearing this beige, but when I hold this up, I don't know if anyone's gonna tell at all, but I think that they look a little bit greener with this color, and I'm excited to wear this cardigan and bring out that greenness of my eyes a little bit more as well. So very excited for that, and it's gonna be so pretty. This is just getting me excited to knit all the pretty color yarn I have. Another one that I think pulls really nicely from my color palette is this yarn. This is from Poppy and Spruce Fibers. It's the Birch Decay base, which is a non-superwash base, and it's actually some of the softest yarn I've ever felt. If you are interested in getting some non-superwash hand-dyed yarn, check out Abby's store, Poppy and Spruce Fibers, because it's so soft. But this is the colorway Hey There Sporgus. I always call it my peach yogurt yarn because it just reminds me so much of the peach yogurt I ate as a child. But here's a little close-up. It's, to me, pulls mostly from the colors Peach Puff, Champagne, and Linen in my color palette. So I think that this neutral honestly doesn't pull perfect from any of the colors in my color palette. It's kind of a little bit yellower than the linen color, and yeah, it's not like, and it's lighter than some of the other neutrals, but I still think that the rest of it, like this pink, is pretty clearly the colorway Peach Puff. So yeah, I think it's still going to work really well for me. And I am planning on making a sweater with this one. I'm planning on making a V-neck, but honestly, maybe I want it closer to my face. So um, we'll see. I'm designing that myself, so I can change whatever I want. But I think that this one's going to suit and bring the pink of my skin out really well, without being overpowering, because it does have that neutral element. So it's not quite as pink as maybe some of the other things I've knit, but it's still got the pinkiness that I love and I think suits me really well. So very excited about that. And then the final yarn I pulled out of my stash after looking at this color palette is this yarn. This is the Knitting for Olive Merino. It's the color Wild Berries. And I think that this pulls most closely to the colors Cordovan and English Red. I don't know, it's another one where I'm like, I don't know if it's like a perfect match to my color palette, but I think that it definitely belongs within there. Obviously, 80 colors is not all the colors I can wear. There are, and I don't want to say I can, but like 80 colors are not all the colors that fit into this palette. It's just, I had to stop at some point. And so I think that this one being a good combo of a few of the colors, and kind of maybe if I combined a few little droppers of English Red and combined a few little droppers of Cordovan, maybe would end up with this color. I think for that reason, like this does fit in really well, and I'm planning on making a high neck tank top with this, and I'm really excited to have this pretty close to my face because, yeah, I think that it's honestly pretty similar color to my lips, so I think that's going to be nice. And yeah, so those are some colors I'm excited about, and I hope that you can see how it was valuable to do the color analysis and now be able to kind of describe these colors in a little bit more detail and make more conscious decisions about how I wear them, given if they are really suited to my undertone or if they are less suited, and kind of how to make those decisions. I think you can also tell that they are also all very faded and muted colors. There's no straight green here. There's no stark white. It's all kind of a nice muted. I always used to say like complex colors or faded, but yeah, they're all kind of like this faded or muted palette. So this has made me a lot more excited to work with them and made me really appreciate why I like these colors. I could say I liked them before, but now I really know, like, oh, I know why I like the way this looks with me, and I know how I want to use it more because I know what it's going to look like on. So those are some yarns I'm really excited to use. Now I have some that I'm just going to quickly show you that are in my stash that are definitely far outside of this palette and kind of what I'm planning on doing with them, given that. So we can start with this one. This is a Hedgehog Fibers sock yarn that I got in a mystery bundle, and this one has so many things. First of all, it's pretty, it's kind of warm toned. It's got some pink, but there is a pretty like violet-y, bluish purple in there, like right there. That's definitely not my favorite kind of purple, and it definitely does not fit in this palette. There's actually no purples in my palette, I don't think. Oh no, there's like one or two purples, like light steel blue is slightly purple, but yeah, there's that purple in there. There's a black. It's like pretty dark and harsh colors, and the pink itself is pretty bold, or just, yeah, it's a strong pink. It's not muted or faded at all. And so, yeah, for all those reasons, I don't think that this suits me very well, and I honestly don't plan on ever working with it. I have noted a couple times when I've kind of talked about this yarn, like when I first got it and things like that, but I am actually open to selling this yarn and trying to get it out of my stash. But I also, it's yarn, I'll hold it until maybe a friend of mine that would suit this, I want to knit for them, or there is someone that I want to trade with or something. But for now, I have it. And like, yeah, it's always hard to tell in just a single skein. Like, in just this skein held up to my face, I'm like, it looks fine. But I think that if I did make a tank top with it or something, I would be like, I don't feel like myself in this. I think, it doesn't do anything for me. Colors don't have to do anything for me, but just given what I'm trying to do with my knit wardrobe, I do want things that feel a little bit more me and feel a little bit more like they bring out something good in me rather than just being on me. So I can see that this one does not fit for me, both prior to doing this color analysis and after. I believe the same thing. And I'm going to present these three together. I'll talk about them a little bit separately, but these three are all kind of minis I have that I would not want right against me. So there's this super bright rainbowy color. This is called Shooting Star, and it's inspired by Mabel from the show Gravity Falls. This is called Tentative Telepathy, also inspired by Gravity Falls, inspired by Lil Gideon. If you know the show, it's a great show if you've never watched it, Gravity Falls. But last summer, I got a countdown to the end of the summer advent calendar. And these were two of the colors in it, and I love them. The advent was so fun, but these are so bright, and just like I can definitely see that they don't make me feel great. Like I would feel self-conscious wearing these, and they just kind of really, I think that I would feel a little bit overpowered in these. And then this one being super blue too, I don't tend to do these kinds of really straight on strong blues, and this palette confirms that I don't need to, or I would rather have a more muted blue or a more kind of greenish blue than a straight on strong blue. Still beautiful. And then this final one I sample knit a while ago for Poppy and Spruce Fibers, and this is one of the leftovers from that sample knit, and it's just a super super bright green. It's beautiful, but I don't think it fits my color palette. I would much rather have a minty green or a lighter green or a faded green. So I wouldn't want to really knit anything that's close to my face with this. So with all of these, luckily they're all minis, but I am planning on making a blanket at some point soon. So I love the fact that I can still enjoy all these colors because, like, are you kidding me? That one's so fun. But I can also be aware of how they're going to make me feel, if I am wearing them, how they're going to make me feel, and kind of playing around only using colors that are going to make me feel really good, because, well, this would be so fun to knit up, and I am so excited to see, each stitch be a different color. I also am so excited for the fact that I'm not going to be wearing it, and I just get to appreciate a little burst of color within a blanket, instead of trying to figure out how to style this much color, this much bright color in my wardrobe that I already have, and to still, not feel overpowered by it. So I'm really excited for these ones to live on in a blanket form and not be right against me. So that is kind of an example of the yarns I have, and if they do or don't suit my color palette, and how I'm going forward with that. And then I really wanted to talk quickly about advent calendars too, or yarn purchases going forward. So one example of this is that I am now looking at getting a Christmas or December 2024 advent calendar of yarn. And, most of the dyers I follow that are planning on doing an advent this year are starting to post about them, sharing their color palettes and things like that. And so I also recently, it was my birthday, and one of the gifts that my mom gave me was saying that she would get me an advent for Christmas this year, because I love advent calendars, not just yarn ones. I love advent calendars. So for my birthday in March, she's giving me a present for December. So I'm really excited about that. And so I've been really intentional about looking at all the ones that are from my favorite dyers and kind of considering which ones I'd like. And I'm really leaning to this one by Zakama Yarns. They're a UK-based brand, or small dyers, and it's the name of it's belonging. I love a lot of the kind of inspiration, but I love a lot of the inspiration from a lot of different advent calendars. One of my other favorite dyers, Salty Blonde Fibers, just announced she's doing a Hallmark movie inspired advent calendar, and that is so cute. So there are so many advents that I would love to buy, but can only buy one. They are very pricey. And so I use the results from my color analysis to go through a lot of the inspiration photos of different ones and see, you know, sky's the limit on how many advents there are and the potential of them all. But I really want one that's going to be workable as a garment of, you know, have these 24 skeins, work them together and make a garment. So that means that I really want a color palette that I love every color of and feels cohesive together. And yeah, so I can wear them all, not have to leave certain skeins out because I don't think I like them, and end up with less yarn than I need for a project. So they posted their 6 color palette for this yarn advent, and I think that this one's perfect for me. So you can see these 6, I'll have them up on the screen, the 6 colors, and I think that they fit really, really well into my color palette. I'm not going to go through each one, but with matches, but I think like this kind of darker muted navy blue that kind of leans a little bit green. It's kind of a warmish blue to me. This chocolatey brown comes through in my palette as well. A nice terracotta shade. There's tons and tons of colors with that in my color palette. So that's awesome. Kind of a camel color, which is also well represented. This, you know, kind of bluish beige color, I also think comes out a lot. A nice grayish. There's so many grayish in my color palette, and I'm really excited about this one. And then finally, kind of a nice creamy color. So I'm excited about that, and it was really helpful to have my color palette done so I could use that as a metric to decide which yarn advent I'd want and which one would suit me well. So, you know, that's another way that I am using this to now go forward making my yarn purchases. All right, so thank you for listening to me talk about this color palette. I hope that it was helpful for you to kind of see maybe the value of seeing what your colors are, and I'm hoping that this really gets me one step closer to knitting pieces and choosing yarn that I will enjoy for decades to come. I'm really trying to knit a timeless for myself wardrobe of wonderful handmade pieces, which really means trying to break away from trends, both in colors, because, you know, there's different colors that come in and out of trend, and in styles. So I'm hoping to be able to focus more on my own personal style, what really suits me, and, you know, be able to make something that looks just as good as it does now and fits into kind of my lifestyle and the way I dress now as it will in 10 or so years. So I'm really happy to have sat down today and kind of gone through my color palette, talked about the yarn I already have, talked about how I'm going to apply it going forward. And I'm really excited to do this in the future with some of the other topics I'm planning on covering to get closer to my own dream knitwear wardrobe. So, you know, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm hoping to talk about silhouettes and styles and what I think is maybe trendy, versus what I am really trying to get at, what I really like the way I feel in. I don't want to say to like the way I look in, because that can evolve and change, but what I feel makes me the most confident in whatever version I am in. So I'm really looking forward to kind of discussing those silhouettes and styles, discussing balancing the process of knitting and enjoying it as a hobby versus enjoying these finished objects, balancing other things as well with, you know, maybe talking about fiber choices going forward and how I want to consider what fibers or what kinds of yarn I purchase for wearability, durability, next to skin softness, kind of talk about those for myself, just so I can hopefully go forward with a handmade wardrobe I'm really going to love. So this has been a really great first step. I hope that it was kind of helpful for you to think through too, and maybe you're interested in getting your own color analysis now. I will link the one I did, but also I've seen a lot of people talk about, just use kind of like a color tool on like Canva or Procreate, use that and use the color picker tool where you can go over any picture and pull out kind of the color for it and use those hex codes. And I saw someone then use the hex codes and ask AI or ChatGPT to like make them a color analysis. So you could do that of just trying to get your undertone, or just look at, look up seasonal color palettes and see which ones really speak to you, which ones you like the most. Experiment with color for yourself. I think it's so fun to do that. But if you are interested in also just having someone else do it for you and getting this nice easy guide or sandbox to play within, I'll link it as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. And I'm trying to now, I don't know if anyone notices that I do this. I put a question of the week in my description. I want to start saying them out loud too, so that maybe more people answer them. So my question of the week is, share what you think about these color analyses. Do you think that they are helpful for you or limiting? Of course, there's going to be a lot of nuance in that answer. Maybe the same person will say both. But overarchingly, do you think that getting a color analysis for yourself would help you choose colors better, or would it be a limiting factor on your creativity and color choice? So please let me know. I think that that's very interesting to kind of discuss. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're having a great week, and I hope you have a great week ahead. I'll see you next week for a podcast episode. So excited for that. Okay, bye y'all.